What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. The Season 2 patch is live. We're going to break down all of it, including the hero changes, demonstrating the most significant ones in the training range, but otherwise the gameplay in the background will be from pugs that I played in against other creators and even a couple Owl Pros at a few times as we tested out these new changes for Season 2, including the new hero, Ramattra. The first change is in the Season 2 Battle Pass. Unlocking the hero for free will be at level 45. There's only 10 levels earlier than it used to be. Aaron Keller added on Twitter as well that they'll be making challenges easier to complete in an attempt for you to level up the Battle Pass easier overall, getting to the hero faster, but as well the other free content. This seems like a very small bone to throw for now, and I sure hope they have more ambitious improvements to announce beyond this. General update to the control game mode. It was a bit of a strange change in Overwatch 2 that looks like they're rectifying it. It says whenever a point is captured on control, the team losing control of the point counts as having contested the point for the purposes of overtime, even if they were not present. So there was some cases in Overwatch 2 where, let's say you were at 99, the enemy had control and were ticking up, but you snuck the objective from them and they didn't touch in time, you would instantly win in Overwatch 2. But now, it's reinstated that they will be benefited the overtime wick so that you cap it, steal it from them, and they at least have the overtime wick to burn down before they touch to contest it again. Other important content changes, we've added challenges for unlocking Junkerqueen, Sojourn, and Kiriko. And perhaps as a way to give you more things to unlock, 70 plus player icon rewards have been added to challenges with the release of Season 2. However, I'm unsure if this is repackaged old player icons, but I guess it's better than nothing. Not sure this helps the unrewarding challenges problem, but it's a step towards something. And now in the shop, you can purchase heroes if you wish to bypass the challenges that are required to get them. New to Season 2 of competitive play, there are new temporary competitive title rewards for name cards based on your end of season rank. You earn them during a season and then only can use them in the following season. This will display your rank essentially if you choose to do that. It says there's implemented a group of matchmaking enhancements to improve match quality. Incredibly vague what this is. They said they did this in the last patch too. I would love a detailed blog post on what this is. Minor polish improvements to the competitive play UI flow, and the new hero Ramattra won't be available in competitive for 2 weeks. Next, hero changes. The damage passive gets a massive nerf. It no longer provides a movement speed bonus, and the reload speed, though, has been buffed from 25% to 35% upon elimination. This dramatically changes which heroes benefits from this passive now. The developers explain, we've decided to remove increased movement speed from the damage roll passive and in turn make the reload speed more significant. While the additional movement speed was helpful, we saw a change in speed negatively affect the ability to aim precisely. Specifically, maybe talking about a character like Widowmaker. Heroes that this gets affected by the most, I think a lot of people think of someone that has a long reload, like Ashe. But in my opinion, because she has such a high capacity, a reload buff though does improve her overall output in a team fight and game, farming ultimate. The heroes that I look to the most are the low capacity heroes that need to reload quickly, and it's going to make or break the time to kill difference in one duel to the next. So these are characters like Reaper, Pharah, Cassidy, and Tracer, who are constantly reloading throughout a team fight, and having their weapon up early and ready to fire again is a massive difference in whether they lose that next little skirmish or not. Those types of characters are going to be getting a big buff, and a lot of them are slow or ranged characters who also benefit from the flankers of the category, not overwhelming them with extra speed. So even if we make the reload boost a wash, some characters benefited from that speed boost more than others. And whether it's closing the distance with a close range weapon like Reaper Shotgun, or just having an easier target to hit as you're lining up shots as Ashe or Widowmaker makes all the difference. This to me is maybe the most significant change in the entire patch, as it changes pretty dramatically which damage heroes are good and for what reasons, which then dramatically changes the whole metagame. We'll get into talking more about that. Next patch note is introducing Ramattra, who I won't go at length to describe, but you can check out my beginner's guide to go through his entire play kit and my best tips for maximizing his complex kit. Takes a lot of game sense, a lot of precision, a lot of timing, but you nail all that down and you'll be able to leverage his powerful ultimate. Absolutely massive changes to Doomfist finally coming through. Hide your kids, hide your wife, because Doomfist can be punching everybody out here. Now there's a lot of numbers changes here, and I'm gonna try my best best to give the key takeaways because they can get a little confusing. So the wall slam damage went down for its minimum and maximum value just by 10 from what it used to be. However, he gains a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20 from just the impact damage. Okay, so a max full punch does 50 even if it doesn't hit the wall, but can then do an additional 30 if it collides with a wall. So that's 80 damage with just the rocket punch, not empowered. Whereas before, that total used to be 70. And very importantly, the total you used to do with just the punch not hitting a wall was 30, now it's 50. So it won't feel too different if you fully punch and hit them into a wall, only 10, but it will feel a lot different in all the cases where you don't connect the target into a wall. And then remember, the empowered punch, which is going to be getting buffed in numerous ways for you to get it more often, increases the speed, damage, and stun by 50%. All right, speaking of the stun, the punch, when you slam them into the wall, has a slightly less stun duration. So it used to be a half to 1 second. Now it's a quarter to 3/4 of a second, shaving off a quarter of a second on both ends of the range. That is one of those, is anyone even going to notice style changes, in my opinion. Technically a change, it's still going to be annoying. But on top of that, it used to not stun at all when you connected to a wall if it wasn't empowered. Now, if you hit a wall slam, even with an unempowered punch, you'll get a mini stun or quarter of a second, 0.25 second duration stun. That's super important because that means Doomfist always has a stun option to interrupt enemy abilities and ultimates, ones that need to channel slightly before they deploy, like Earth Shatter from Reinhardt or Junkerqueen's Rampage, and a host of other channeling style abilities. Cassidy's High Noon, for example, can all be mini stunned now. And that's one of Doom's low-key biggest plays, in my opinion, since he gets Rocket Punch up every 3 seconds. A few more small changes. Empowered punch knockback radius reduced from 4 to 3 meters, so it doesn't go as far, somewhat significant, but the cancel option can be done faster. You used to have to wait at least 0.25 of a second, now 0.12 of a second, if you really need to decide to cancel the punch to block to save yourself. Now, there's more changes as well. To power block, the cooldown has been reduced from 8 to 7 seconds, and the duration is half a second longer, going from 2 to 2.5 seconds. And the minimum damage mitigated required to empower Rocket Punch is reduced from 90 to 80 damage. For higher tiers, the duration I don't think is so big because holding your block that long likely gets a disable landed on you, which he's still vulnerable to, but the minimum damage to empower does matter. Just catching a little bit of chip can get it done. More important though is Meteor Strike gets a significant buff where it will now empower your Rocket Punch on landing. The enemy slow duration also has been increased from 2 to 3 seconds when they're hit by this ability. And I really love this change because I think a lot of the tanks in the game sort of get their main ability back when they use their ultimate, and especially for Doomfist, with Meteor Strike being pretty hard to utilize to get much out of, considering a lot of the other tank ults in the games are like I win buttons in comparison. At least this gives him a supercharged form. And considering all the other buffs that came to his punch, well, now the uptime of that is severely higher. Oh yeah, and he can get a total of 650 health now. The maximum temporary health has been increased from 150 to 200, so that's the cap that you can rack up. So players that can play faster and use their cooldowns more for multi-hits or more frequently will be able to farm up more health than before. And it's also easier to do because temporary health gained per target hit with abilities increased from 30 to 40 health per hit. So you might not have to worry about Roadhog one-shotting you all the time. Maybe now Doom will, and be much harder to hit. A problem I see with these changes is I still don't think this makes Doom easier to play at the skill floor, but makes him a lot more oppressive if you know how to use him. So he's way more rewarding if you can land his kit, but nothing is really easier. You just have more power more reliably, which I think is a bit troublesome for Overwatch because it's the type of kit that might not be mainstream in every game, but is devastating when you play against it. So how do you get game time learning to counter it? Then you come against a Doom God and no one's drilled the counterplay and you don't stand a chance. This is going to be tough in season 2, especially since Ramattra's over here setting down a shield that can't move and Doom is just a Giga Tank running through your backline, playing at an incredible pace with way better damage. Not only do I think Doom comps will counter Ramattra, a lot of high-level players I've been speaking to think Doom might be the meta tank with all these buffs, at least at the higher tiers. But we will see the other changes and evaluate further as time goes on. Next patch note is to Junkerqueen. Her torso and head hit volume size is increased by 12%. While this is incredibly justified because her small body is so hard to hit and shifty, and she speeds up, and there's multiple speed boosts in the game that she's annoying to try to hit. That being said, I think this nerf outweighs a lot of the other buffs that they tried to put in here. Rampage wound duration has been nerfed from 5 seconds to 4.5, but the ultimate does get a bit of a buff where the cost has been reduced by 10%, which overall is a buff to the ultimate. But keep in mind, Kiriko exists, which I'll explain more at the end of this segment. Commanding Shout's cooldown has been reduced from 15 to 14 seconds, 1 second less. And the Adrenaline passive healing multiplier has been increased from 1 to 1.25. So a quarter increase. I had to look this up on the wiki. I don't remember them ever explaining this, but apparently the wounds Junkerqueen applies changes the values based on which ability applies it. I thought it was uniform when they first explained it, but the wiki says that the wound from Jagged Blade does 15 damage over 13 seconds and heals the same at a 1.0 ratio before. And Carnage, the big axe swing, would apply a 40 damage wound, which applied over 3 seconds, also healing for that same amount. It doesn't say the wound damage on Rampage. Maybe it's the same as the knife, not so significant. But either way, assuming these numbers are accurate, you'll get 25% more in each case, which for them is supposed to be the big buff they're applying here to Junkerqueen, giving her more personal survivability rather than team utility. But if you compare to the buffs they gave Doomfist and how much extra life he's gaining off his abilities, this is cupcakes compared to that. You'll be healing 10 more with Carnage and about 3 more with Jagged Blade. Again, over a 3-second duration, not instantly. This is one area where I think Blizzard is massively dropping the ball with the way they're rebalancing Overwatch 2. They had a vision for Junkerqueen. They released it. It went to Owl. The devs knew that Kiriko was coming to the game. Owl didn't have her. Turns out, Junkerqueen, without a cleanse in the support category, was ridiculous. Dominated the entire game, but was just considered strong for the average tier player in beta, if you're not in a full pre-made team. She got beaten down over the head and shoulders with the nerf stick, and now they're going to slowly ease her back into power, not compensating for the fact that Kiriko was the major game changer to her effectiveness, since her big anti-heal with her ultimate and all of her wounds anyway can get cleansed. So regardless of what the number is, there's a wound to be gone in the game. And oh yeah, Zarya still has 2 bubbles as well. So between those 2 characters, you can have your whole team get cleansed from everything Junkerqueen does. So my question is, why do you need to apply rules that were in one meta where a game-changing hero didn't exist and still stay with that same strategy as if that's the world we live in now? We're already multiple heroes later, Blizzard. Like, why hold on to that? Okay, maybe not the full revert, but I'm just saying this like 10% buff is just not even cutting it. Having a shout on a tank is kind of a support ult on cooldown, as much as I'm downplaying how strong it was originally. Maybe I'm biased because she's one of my best tanks. And I like SR. Either way, I just think it's going to take a while to get this data. Meanwhile, they have meteor struck Doomfist to the stratosphere. All right, whatever, enough whining. Onto the damage characters now. Bastion, the ultimate configuration artillery, has its delay before projectile drops reduced from 1 to 0.6 seconds. So quite a lot faster, shaving off 40% of that second. But the explosion damage reduced from 300 to 250. A huge change that I enjoy is it no longer deals explosion damage to yourself, and the minimum delay between placing shots is reduced by 20%, which makes you be able to trap targets in the barrage a lot easier. I'll also say that using it is kind of telegraphed because you hear him say that he's using it, so you can get warning. So maybe you go hunt him down as he's transforming into the artillery anyway. So that means often you got to use it close to you to defend yourself from the thing that's rushing you down. Well, now, because you can drop it on yourself, you can punish the players trying to farm you while you're AFK. Maybe that's the Junkrat player in me, where Tyre works in a similar way. Another change, reconfigure cooldown has been reduced from 12 to 10 seconds. Keep in mind, in a slower metagame where flankers aren't as good, Bastion, I think, gets a bit of a buff as well. Not necessarily because he needs the reload speed, but just because it's safer to be a slower character now. Well, until we get to some of the other buffs, at least. Next up, though, the big nerf everyone's been waiting for to Sojourn, redesigning her kit and damage significantly. The developers explain that Sojourn is performing too well at the highest tiers of competitive play, but poorly at lower tiers. Much of the perception that she is too powerful seems to be driven by the reaction to dying too long long-range charged headshots from her railgun secondary fire. I don't know if people like it at close range either. I don't know where they get this long-range part from, but these changes are aimed at reducing frustrations there, with the biggest change being the reduced critical multiplier for headshots. A fully charged headshot no longer kills a full health 200 HP hero. Thank you so much, Blizzard, for defining this in the patch notes explicitly, so players get the point of this. You're also putting me out of a job for being able to explain what the numbers mean. But to help account for the loss of power, we're increasing the damage of her primary fire and how quickly her energy charges during her ultimate. So her ult actually got better in this, in a way. At least the double body shot ults that I go for. All right, so here's the changes in detail. The railgun energy delay before draining has been reduced from 8 to 5 seconds, but this still feels like forever. Okay, so I don't think this matters too much. 8 seconds was just way, way, way too good. And the secondary fire fall off used to be 70 meters, which is Widowmaker range that you'll never play in. And now it's 40 meters, which is still within the place you would be fighting anyway. I think you're going to find it really rare where the damage fall off is ever applicable to your gameplay on a character that doesn't struggle with distance control with an outrageous movement ability that comes back very quickly. So this is neither here nor there. But of course, the secondary fire critical damage multiplier being reduced from 2 to 1.5 is massive. Also, the railgun damage scales linearly with the energy. Starting when you have 0 energy, it'll do 30 damage up to a maximum of 130 damage, which means 1 energy converts to 1 damage added with a base point of 30. And with that 1.5 headshot multiplier, the best you're going to get out of a headshot is 195 damage. So that means you won't be able to peek around the corner and insta-blast a squishy. And keep in mind, there is a small delay before you can fire again after shooting the railgun. But if you either were charging the rail off the target you were shooting, or you shoot one shot that hits them, you'll still be able to, like, insta-tap them, kind of. Right? That one little pepper of damage plus a railgun to the head will get the job done if you're at 100 charge already. Because keep in mind, big part of Sojourn's gameplay style was farm the tank, headshot the squishy. You can still do that all entirely with one little extra step added in, landing one bullet of your primary before you insta-switch to the railgun, and there's not too much of a delay between that. So she'll still be able to melt things. It's just a little bit trickier. And in fact, I don't know if this deals with the highest tier of play, because this type of combo, high-level players are not going to struggle to do. And you also buffed her primary fire damage, which means she'll farm tanks better with her primary fire, which she was doing anyway. Granted, 10 damage per pellet isn't that impressive, okay? So that doesn't matter too much, but you'll be getting your ult maybe faster because of that. And the ultimate is significantly better, at least in terms of the rate of fire. Granted, you're not one-shotting squishies to the head, but it shoots 20% faster, okay? So at least for average players, Sojourn's way better, because getting 2 body shots with a faster fire rate is doable. I don't know. They were looking to nerf her at higher tiers. I think she's still going to be good. And most of this is just a buff for the average players. I'm going to go ahead and say if Blizzard's wrong about these changes being effective, like I think they are, I'm going to be quite upset that they don't listen to anybody's opinions when they come to these conclusions, like most of the perception is she's too powerful is driven by the reaction to dying to long-range headshots. What? Long range? We don't play this game at long range. Sojourn's a medium range character in a very medium range game on medium range maps. Where are these long-range maps you speak of? Ivana's not in the pool. What are we talking about? The one saving grace from this, though, is I think the damage passive did low-key help Sojourn a lot, where because her AD strafe is so insane anyway, once she got the movement speed passive, then she was super hard to kill. Okay, so other range characters should have a better chance to hit her now, and whether it's Ashe or Widow, they should have an advantage. So it might not be Sojourn or bust, and those other characters might replace her in terms of the highest tier pick, seeing as I'm drawing some situations where they don't so reliably lose to her that you shouldn't even consider the other options. Luckily, other characters will be more playable, I think, for sure. Next change is to Symmetra. So proton projector beam charge rate and decay rate has increased by 20%. So it'll charge up faster and charge down faster at the same rate. It does take more ammo, 10 per second when it used to be 7 only, but it also gains ammo from damaging barriers again. Not a fan of this mechanic because it is limited at higher tiers into cheese and in metal ranks. Symmetra is like low-key way too good, in my opinion, for metal rank players. It's an outrageous amount of look forward to deal nuts damage and feel like you're horribly punished by not a lot of effort from the sim player, considering her sentry turrets make it hard to advance anyway. She's just super punishing for tanks that are trying to take space. My problem with these changes is that players that know how to counter her well won't fall to her shenanigans so much on most of the maps. She'll just be good on some obnoxious maps where she hides away on the objective. Next change is to the actual meta character in the patch, I think. There was a bug where Tracer didn't have fall-off damage, but they nerfed her damage almost to compensate when they didn't know the bug existed for some reason. Their communication on this is really weird. The bug is resolved, so she does have fall-off damage again, but the damage from her pulse pistols has been increased from 5 to 6. But keep in mind, that doubles for 2 because she's got 2 pulse pistols. So whereas you could deal 10 damage per shot, now you deal 12. Tracer likes that fast reload quite a lot from the damage passive. Doesn't need the mobility so much because she's got so many extra blinks anyway. Last patch, she was zipping around a Reaper who could just sort of hold his ground. Now, with the added damage, she'll be able to leverage her movement advantage a lot better. That's natural in her kit specifically, as opposed to the role overall. She syncs well with Doomfist. It's kind of looking like she's going to reemerge as the flanker of choice, where she has otherwise been put to the back burner. But the damage buff will help her get pulses more often, which is also very important to Tracer's gameplay loop. On to support now. Ana, cooldown reduced from 15 to 14 seconds. Wow, thanks for the patch note, Blizzard. Why did you waste the ink? My biggest tip for Ana in the Kiriko meta, I explained in depth in a Ana video I made, but nowadays, you just cannot use her abilities to initiate. While that normally is very powerful in a lot of matchups to gain tempo, you instead need to play Ana more opportunistically for value. Whereas before, you could get away with yeeting your abilities at the enemy team wantonly. Now I would suggest a bit more reserved playstyle. Look for opportunistic openings, instead focusing a bit more on your primary fire and heal nading your tank reliably in between looking for the aggression with Sleep Dart and Anti-Nade. If you do that, the tank battle swings in your favor a lot of the time. Next change is to Kiriko. Developers say the hit volume adjustment is to help address her arm sometimes blocking headshots in some of her animations. Kiriko feels balanced overall, but her ultimate could feel too frantic at times. We're reducing both the movement speed and cooldown rate boost it grants so that it's easier to aim during its effects for both allies and enemies, as well as there being fewer abilities being thrown about. The rest of the changes are primarily for quality of life improvements to make the abilities feel better to use. So this is implying that these changes aren't for balance, but for feel, which they sometimes do, and that's reasonable. But of course, they will have balance implications. And what they seem to be implying here is that Kiriko doesn't have an outmoded win rate at any tier of play as far as they're concerned, or at least that's not their justification for the following nerfs. So hitbox volume's width on her arms is increased by 15%. Now, while that won't help her hiding her head hitbox at weird angles, it makes her more reliable to hit from everything to a significant degree. Like anytime they've done this on any character in Overwatch 1, I found it very noticeable. Maybe I just can't aim and I need the help. They also added an auto wall climb option in the hero options. To the ultimate, Kitsune Rush ultimate cost is increased by 10%, getting it a little bit slower, and the movement speed bonus has been reduced from a whopping 50 down to 30. That's a pretty big change. And the cooldown rate has been reduced from 3 times faster to just 2 times faster. Okay, now keep in mind, Rush has a lingering effect, so you could run through it and run things down. But with a reduced move speed, you won't get as far with the same buff amount as you did before. So that means overall it's easier to dodge, just from that. It also means your reaction time to dodge away from it when it's right on top of you is more doable, because maybe your speed boost from Lucio is enough to dodge the ultimate 1-to-1. More or less. Lucio's speed amp gives you 60% movement speed. So Kitsune Rush was 50 and speed amp was only 10% more. Now it's 30% more. Okay, so speed amping away from Kitsune Rush, way better. Now the cooldown rate reduction is also pretty huge. I would say particularly tanks, but everybody gets value out of this, but I think particularly like a long cooldown, like Winston Bubble was really abused by the pros. Getting 2 of those in a Kitsune Rush is just nuts. In a ranked context, maybe getting Zarya bubbles over and over again at 3 times the normal rate made you unkillable in the ultimate. So now you're probably losing a cycle or 2 out of a couple of those. Keep in mind, Kitsune Rush lasts a long time. The ultimate lasts 10.5 seconds, okay? I think it's still nuts. These nerfs, they're all significant, but the fact of the matter is you fire twice as fast and move faster at all. So while the move speed nerf is somewhat significant, all of this was just overkill anyway. Protection Suzu's cast time has been reduced from 0.15 of a second to 0.1, just to get it out of your hand a little quicker. Kunai's ammo has been increased from 12 to 15. Yes, I did feel like she had to reload a lot in my experience as well. That's kind of a feel thing, but it does make her a little bit stronger. The Swift Step ability input can be held to activate now. So as you're panicking to get in range for a teammate to save you from the brink of death, you can hold the ability down like you can with most abilities, if not all that I recall. You can queue them up ahead of time, so that's all good. A change to Mercy now. Her weapon swap time has been reduced from half a second to 0.35 of a second, and the ammo has increased on her Katasis blaster from 20 to 25. The developers say this is a change that will help enable Mercy to better defend herself or even go on the offensive at times. In 5v5, these situations occur much more often. In 5v5, these situations occur much more often. You got to make sure that you know you're going to win that duel when you pick out the blaster, because you won't be able to heal for a while when you choose violence. And I guess that's what they're trying to ramify, because the swap time isn't just swapping to the blaster, but swapping back. Because before, the total swap there and back was 1 second. Now it's 0.7. I don't know. That's still pretty small. But that's the best argument I can make for it. Season 2 map pools are back into effect. Push maps are New Queen Street, Coliseo, Esperanza. Hybrid, we got Blizzard World, Overcast, which is new. Eichenwald, Kings Row, Midtown, and Paraiso. Escort, we got Dorado, Junkertown, Circuit Royale, Rialto, Route 66, and Shambhala Monastery, which is the new nighttime map. Control, we've got Busan, Ilios, Lijiang, Nepal, and Oasis. I looked through the long list of bug fixes as well. I didn't see any that I thought were incredibly popular for being a problem or low-key huge hero changes, but if you think you've noticed one, put it in the comment section down below. And hey, while you're interacting with the video down there, please be sure to leave the video with a like, and as well, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you actually get notified when our new videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.